Today I'm going to be talking about the book Deep Work by Cal Newport and how to stay focused in a distracted world. Thank you for joining me on my channel. My name is Nicholas Lynch. I'm going to talk to you today about the book Deep Work. This book was recommended to me by my friend Christopher Wilson, who is co-founder of the games company Cardboard Sword. They're currently working on a game called Transmission and The Siege and the Sandfox. So he said that this was a helpful book for increasing his productivity, so I thought I'd give it a read, which I have now, and I'd like to share some of the tips that I found from it. So here you go. So you might be asking yourself, what is deep work? I know I was when I first started reading this book. I'd never heard of the term, but the author describes it in quite an eloquent way. The author describes deep work as a professional activity performed in a state of distraction-free concentration, which pushes your mental and cognitive abilities to their limit. Comparing this to shallow work, which is usually a non-cognitively demanding task, more logistical in nature, which doesn't really add any value. So this description of what deep work is by Carl in the book is... So this description of what deep work is by Cal in the book is helpful, but to break it down into a more understandable form, perhaps for me at least, I found it helpful to think of it as a amount of time in a secluded environment where you can get work done without being interrupted. So usually that means somewhere it's quiet, somewhere you're not distracted, somewhere where you're slightly cut off from the rest of the world so you can't be found or interrupted. That's what deep work means to me, at least. Part 2 of the book is about the rules of deep work and how to do deep work. So the first rule is do deep work. It talks about 4 different philosophies of how to do deep work. So the first being the monastic. I believe they talk about Bill Gates taking his week-long reading retreats, which is not massively practical for the average person unless you want to dedicate all your holiday time to this. The second way of doing this is via the biphasic model, which Carl Jung used to employ, where he would specify a certain amount of time he would put over to doing deep work, where he would retreat to his tower and study and formulate new ideas. The rest of his time was spent actually seeing patients and socializing. That's possible. That's probably the model I will try and employ. The third model is rhythmic. This is allowing a certain amount of time each day, sometimes called the chain method, which allows you to build the momentum of doing something each day, so you don't want to break that chain, which can be helpful in itself. The fourth is the journalistic approach, which is whenever you have the idea, you run off and spend 20 minutes, half an hour, really focused in that work, and then come back refreshed and carry on. That sounds like an interesting way of doing it. I'm not sure it's something I could do. They do recommend it as a more advanced way of working, but I'm not sure it's something I could do. But maybe you'll find it useful. Let me know in the comments. So Cal then goes on to talk about rituals, which allow you to have a series of events in place, which helps you step into the mindset of now is the time to do deep work, which I found quite useful. These vary from person to person, and he gives us a variety of examples in the book, each with their pros and cons. In the book, it talks about working alone and working with serendipitous interactions. So there's building in MIT, building 20, we're having very long corridors with lots of departments in the same building, allowing the people from different departments, when traveling along this long corridor, to bump into each other and discuss what they're working on, and making some interesting collaborations on combining multiple fields that might otherwise not come into contact with each other. So this is good, helpful in fact, but you do also need the space to do the deep work itself. So it's not an open plan office, it's an area where people can interact and share ideas, but once those ideas have been shared, there is then space that you can work deeply outside of interruption. Cal then goes on to talk about the 4 disciplines of execution. So the first being you need to have a wildly ambitious goal. So this is something that you need to focus on. So it's something you're working towards. If you don't have a goal, simply saying I'm going to work 20 hours of deep work this week may have benefits, unknown benefits, but unless you're working on something in particular, that energy may go to waste. So it may be you're looking to write a book. So you say, oh, I'm going to work 20 hours on that book, and then you've got something to work towards. Otherwise it's rather pointless. The second point of the 4 disciplines is he talks about leads and lags. So you've got your lags, which is ultimately the goal you're looking to achieve. So maybe write a book, but then he goes on to say about leads, which are the things that, the process basically of writing the book. So how could you write your book? Well, you have to look to a step behind, which would be to spend more time focusing on writing the book. So it might be saying, I want to spend 10 hours a week writing this book. And then that will allow you to have that deep time, that deep work set aside so that you can actually focus on that. So if you focus on the process, eventually you will get to your goal. Disciplines 3 and 4 go quite nicely together. Discipline 3 is that of keeping accounts or keeping score. So something that you have in a prominent place, whether it's a calendar, you're putting an X through each day once you've done your time, or some kind of thing online, however you like to do it, making sure that you do keep constant in your task. And rule number 4 being that you check in with someone every week, so you're accountable, whether that's your editor, again if you're using the book example, or a colleague in the field, so you can say you've done what you said you were going to do. Maybe they're doing the same thing, so you can be their accountability partner. Either way, it's supposed to be very helpful for keeping you on track. The second larger rule that we have in part 2 of the book is embracing boredom. So this is the idea that you have moments of downtime once you've used all your mental energy to regain your energy for less intense work. He also talks about the idea of going for walks and thinking on a problem to be quite helpful. Also talks about scheduling all your time so that you even schedule the downtime, as it were, so that you have time to focus on. If you don't schedule it, you may go onto autopilot and start to work on shallow work. You might get caught up in your emails, you might get caught up in a conversation and lose that time. The third rule he talks about is getting off social media. So you might have heard this general concept of getting off there because it's a bit of a waste of time. It's not too productive. Cal goes a little bit deeper in describing getting off social media, that it actually trains your mind to not crave that minute-to-minute update, so you can really focus in on the work you're doing. Once you do get off it, your mind is able to work for longer periods of time without being distracted, and the more and more you do this, the longer and longer you can go, up to, I think it was a maximum of something like 4 hours. But yeah, it's like a muscle. The more you practice your self-control, the longer you can go. So the fourth rule that's talked about in the book is this idea of draining the shallows. So when you're doing shallow work, is it absolutely necessary? So there's a company that's mentioned in the book called Basecamp, which decided to go to a 4-day work week. So this didn't affect anyone's pay. They're all paid as if they were working 5 days a week, and it didn't affect the actual productivity. In fact, the productivity went up. So this was hypothesized that the actual areas that were cut were the shallow work in the business, so needless emails and needless meetings, those kind of things. So people were actually able to realize they had a short amount of time to do it, so they would really focus in and work on the important things, which made it better for everyone. In this section, it also mentions the idea of quantifying the depth of each of your day-to-day tasks. So are you doing 90% of shallow tasks? Are you doing, well, it'd be nice to be doing 100% of deep work, but just to get an idea, so that once you've quantified it, you can then to either batch them or group these things together if they're shallow, and keep your deep work area or time safe in the morning or in the afternoon or wherever you've got it, which allows you to be more productive and maybe even trim down on your shallow work. So in summary, I really enjoyed this book. I thought it had lots to offer. I found the author Cal, or probably Professor Newport, to be a very engaging writer. I had to really focus in to get the first half of the book, the philosophy side and the kind of breakdown on the reasoning behind deep work, which took a little bit of thinking on. But no, I like the stories in there, some of the examples of researchers organising their time so they can get the most amounts of research papers published in a year, and managing their teaching versus research necessities. And yeah, there's a lot in this book, and I've just skimmed the surface, so that I would recommend giving it a read, as I do most of these books. But yeah, so I think it's been a well worth my time, and hopefully yours. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you like videos like this, please do check out some of the other videos on my channel. And if you did like this, please like and subscribe. It really helps. And I hopefully will have some more videos for you soon. Thanks very much. Bye.